All glories to Mother Rytasha, all glories to religion of love, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the Supreme Lord. O Lord God, please help us about these teachings and be an example of love in the world. Jai. Amen. Oh. Okay. Again, continuing from Mother Rytasha's own commentary of the book A Spiritual Revolution. So we're starting at the top of page 25 in the complete teachings PDF. Be wise, therefore, and know that a true spiritual master... Oh, I think I dropped the call. We're having some technical difficulties.
Please leave your message for...
The reception is pretty bad.
It needs to be higher.
Think it needs to go higher? Here it comes. Technical difficulties, apologies.
No, all good, sorry. Yeah, I can hear you. I'm at page 25. Feel free to resume. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. No, my apologies. I'm making the tripod higher that's holding the phone, so hopefully it gets more reception. For everybody watching this video, the reception comes and goes with the wind. And there's a nice breeze a-blowing, and so is the reception a-going. Okay, well, God willing, we don't lose the call again. All right, let me start over. Excuse me. Be wise, therefore, and know that a true spiritual master comes in disciplic succession, taught by a master, who was taught by a master, all the way back to when the message of God was first received. A spiritual master's words and works are of God. Man may make philosophy, but only God gives religion. The spiritual master delivers the message of God without change or alteration, just as a postman delivers a letter. I'm just going to read a bunch, and then I'll go through it again with the commentary. A spiritual master must be living. We're going through the 4 qualifications of a spiritual master. First being, they come in disciplic succession. Second, a spiritual master must be living. At this, the same man rose and told of a friend who had taken as his master a famous teacher long dead and whom he had never met, and kept his picture in a place of honor. Can I have as master such a one as this? And laughing, she answered him, saying, That would be like putting a picture on your wall of a beautiful film star and saying, She is my wife. For surely there will be no fruit from this union, nor will there be spiritual fruit from the other. And the man, laughing himself, commented, Your teaching seems very clear, and though I am a simple man, I can understand it. But others come, and we can't understand them at all. And she nodded, saying, We live in a time when men who call themselves master will speak in such a way that no one can understand. They will not even let Scripture be heard in the common language of the people. The ignorant will then think, because they cannot understand, that it must be very deep, and the speaker very learned. A man in the back, a musician by trade, who was listening, now raised his head and said, Here many say, Guru is God. There is no God but God, came her answer. The master is an ambassador from God, in that he brings the message of God, and so may be accorded all respects, just as an ambassador of the queen is given all respects, but no one but a fool believes him to be the queen. And continuing, she said, "A spiritual master neither needs nor wants anything material from the disciple. If he asks something of the disciple, it is always to benefit the disciple. Sometimes the master will take something away, just as a good mother, seeing her child putting something dirty in his mouth, will take it away. But be not afraid, for you will never be given a burden that will break you, a load too heavy for you to carry. For out of love and knowledge, the master acts only for your good." And again the first man asked, "And what of a disciple? What must he be, and what must he do? For it is said that it is very difficult to become your disciple, for you have turned many away who came to you." "A disciple," she answered, "must have a sincere desire for spiritual life, and that is easily known by whether or not he follows the instruction of the master. Disciple means discipline. A man who comes to the master but who will not follow is like a man who says he wants to be clean but refuses to take a bath. Must I give up everything I own to follow you? Must I give up everything I own to follow you?" the son of a rich man asks. "What do you own?" she asked back, "for surely everything belongs to God. We may only have the use of things temporarily while we are here. What is important is not how little or how much we have, but that we use it in the service of God." And as we traveled, I guess I can stop there. So those are the 4 qualifications of a bona fide spiritual master. 1, a true master comes in disciplic succession. 2, they live the message of God without change or alteration and speak only God's message. Just like a postman delivering a letter, the mailman's not going to change anything. 3rd, the spiritual master neither needs nor wants anything material from the disciple. There's no money, no payment, no expectations, just love, knowledge, devotional service. And the 4th, the spiritual master must be living. Now let's hear Mother Rytasha's commentary. "Be wise, therefore, and know that a true spiritual master comes in disciplic succession, taught by a master who was taught by a master all the way back to when the message of God was first received. This is important. It is like when you go to a doctor. You don't want the doctor because he's read a book or because he's had a vision. You want to entrust your physical life to someone who has trained under a doctor, who has gone to medical school, who has served his residency and internship. And even more important than your body is your soul. So under these qualifications, you want somebody who was trained by a master all the way back to when the message of God was first received. And I'd like to add, these do exist actually. There are these unbroken disciplic successions. They call them paramparas of living, pure devotees of God in an unbroken chain of master to disciple, master to disciple, master to disciple, that go back thousands and thousands of years. Really, they exist. They're not too common to find, these rare, pure devotees of God. Oh no. Only for those who are most sincere does God make a meeting with one like this. But they exist. And it's incredible. You can trace back the lineage of these spiritual masters, that you can name them, this master to that master, going back so long. It's incredible. Absolutely fascinating. Continuing on. A spiritual master's words and works are of God. Man may make philosophy, but only God gives religion. The spiritual master delivers the message of God without change or alteration, just as a postman delivers a letter. The spiritual master may speak in the local language or give examples that are understood by peoples he's speaking to. As the great prophet said, "Speak truth to the level of the listener." But the basic message must be what God has given. One sec. Excuse me. Pardon me. A spiritual master must be living. At this the same man rose and told of a friend who had taken as his master a famous teacher long dead, and whom he had never met, and kept his picture in a place of honor. Can I have as a master such a one as this? These great spiritual personalities that have come and came before are great inspiration for us. But still, we need a living spiritual master to make a real relationship with. Otherwise, we are listening to our mind most of the time. The mind is material and is full of past things. It is the voice of the mother, the teacher, society's voice. I can give you an example. There was a man who was killing a lot of prostitutes in England at one time. He was called the Yorkshire Ripper. And finally, when he was caught and brought to trial, his excuse for these horrific crimes was that God told him to do it. And laughing, she answered him, saying, "That would be like putting a picture on your wall of a beautiful film star and saying, 'She is my wife.' For surely there will be no fruit from this union, nor will there be spiritual fruit from the other." And the man, laughing himself, commented, "Your teaching seems very clear, and though I am a simple man, I can understand it. But others come, and we can't understand them at all." And she nodded, saying, "We live in a time when men who call themselves master will speak in such a way that no one can understand. They will not even let Scripture be heard in the common language of the people. The ignorant will then think, because they cannot understand, that it must be very deep, and the speaker very learned." The whole idea of a spiritual master giving knowledge to the disciple is to make it as simple and as clear as possible, so the disciple can do it. As we said before, hearing doesn't mean just listening, but that you take an action. And for that, you have to be very clear and simple. You have to have understood basically what you have heard. And there are two levels you hear from the spiritual master. In class you hear, and then you try to live it out. In class, when you hear it, you usually say, "Oh yeah, I can do it." And when you try to act and do it, you find out where you really are. A man in the back, a musician by trade, who was listening, now raised his head and said, "Here many say Guru is God." "There is no God but God," came her answer. Now this is again the Guru who is not bona fide, who sets himself up to be worshipped. Guru is not God. Guru is the via medium to God. And the mood of the true Guru is to be the servant. Now remember, this is Mother Rytasha speaking, not I. When I give initiation, I wash the feet of the disciple, usually the dirtiest part of the body. And that shows that the spiritual master is there to serve and to help clean the dirt, the illusion that clouds the heart and causes our suffering. I do this not just to clean, but to give an example to the disciples, because I do not train people to be disciples, but train them to be spiritual masters. I'd like to add something, if I may, about the spiritual master making the message of God as simple as possible. I remember she said once in class in Benares at our center, a spiritual master or a true master of any discipline really, can explain complex, deep knowledge so simply that even a child can grasp it. See, that is also one of the qualifications of a spiritual master, is they're not speaking from theoretical knowledge or second-hand knowledge from books that they read. They're speaking from actual realization, full living experience of this knowledge. For a pure devotee of God who's cleansed away all the ignorance, all the illusion, all the dirt of material contamination from the dust of the mind, and is reawakened and situated once more in their original spiritual consciousness, which is eternal, full of knowledge, and ecstatically blissful. One who has realized all this knowledge from within their own heart by fully surrendering unto the Lord in loving service. They can impart true knowledge unto us, and from their living experience, they can explain it in such a way that the disciple can hear it. Jesus, speaking to these scattered tribes of Israel, he's speaking to them in a very specific way that they understand. Or the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, speaking to the peoples of Arabia, different culture, different time, he's speaking to them in a manner that they can understand. He's a spiritual master. The Prophet Muhammad said, speak to the level of the listener. That's what he did. A true master gives the message of God when it is beneficial and to the level of the listener. And they can see the real us, the spiritual master. They're not looking at the body. They're not looking at, our dirty mind, although they can see all of that. But the spiritual master, the pure devotee of God, God's representative, coming in disciplic succession, is relating to us only on a spiritual level and sees us as an eternal spirit soul. The beloved lover, the servant of God, just covered over and forgotten this truth. And whether man, woman, elderly or child, black or white, rich or poor, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Jew, atheist, whatever, the spiritual master treats everyone equally, for they see as God sees, for they see everyone as an eternal spirit soul. Therefore, they are the well-wisher of everyone. They are the servant of everyone. And in that service, it doesn't serve anybody at all if you try and make things so complicated and so beautiful and use huge vocabulary and vernacular and poetry that sounds really beautiful and whatnot, but what does it all mean? And if we're left there for hours contemplating, like you do in some philosophy or English classes, you're just, okay, what does this poetry mean? What does it mean to you? And everyone's putting their interpretation of it. And this is a terrible thing. Us trying to interpret with our contaminated minds what God has given. The spiritual master, by the blessings of God, come before us to deliver God's message simply, purely, without interpretation. Not only that, they live the message. They're the living example of it. In the East, they have this word called acharya. Acharya means the living example of the spiritual, of God's message. And because they live it from realization, and because they understand and look into the heart of the one they're sharing this knowledge with, particularly the disciple, they know just how to explain it in such a way that help you understand and cut through the interpretations of your mind and stop that. It's not what we think is spiritual. It's not what we think is holy, what we think is going to purify us. All of that, throw that out into the garbage, because what we think has all been wrong. Because that's coming from the mind. The mind's off on the past, and the mind is material. Spiritual master is to help cut through your illusions and help you see things as they really are, simply, plainly, clearly, so that now you can actually do it. Dispel the darkness of illusion and ignorance with the light of knowledge, so simple and clearly that now you can do it, now you can practice it, now you can apply it in your life. Because if you don't know what you're doing, like what does this even mean? Like, how do I actually do that in my life? We just go along with our daily motions, our daily activities, and we don't change, we don't do anything. Okay, I read this book, I heard this thing, that's nice, whatever, and no change. There has to be change. If there's no change, we're just stagnant, we might as well be dead. And that's how we're all living. We're not actually living at all. We're just passing time, trying to enjoy materially as possible, suffering all the reactions along the way until, oops, suddenly death goes upon us. Wasn't expecting that. No, we have to really make real and serious preparations. But anywho, I just wanted to comment that the spiritual master makes things super, super, super duper clear. And every time I had class with Mother Rytasha, anytime I've seen people give questions to her in public programs or whatnot, she always took her time to answer very clearly and very carefully. And she didn't give too much wordy responses. Even I talked too much compared to her. She was very concise. All right, let me go back to her teachings. Oh, this is all her teachings, but her direct commentary, I mean to say. Where did I leave off at?
We're talking about it. Spiritual masters are well-wishers to all.
Yeah, okay. And they make it really simple that you can do it. Okay. All right. I read that I don't train disciples to be, I don't train people to be disciples, I train them to be spiritual masters.
Yes.
It's very nice. That's another thing about a true spiritual master. Or any great teacher in general, even in material disciplines. A real master, a truly great master or teacher, their desire is for the student to master these teachings themselves, so that they become the master. And that is the greatest reward for a sincere and true teacher, is it not? So the spiritual master's goal is for the ultimate spiritual realization and salvation of that disciple so that they can come home to God. They pretty much are rooting for your complete success, that you make it in this life. They're rooting for you. They're not trying to hold you back. They're not trying to keep you down. They want to lift you up. But lift you up within your heart, in your devotion, in your love, not with pride. And that we bring ourselves low. We become the servants of the servants of the servants of God. In humility, the spiritual master, as Mother Rytasha says, she comes to serve. So a man in the back, a musician by trade who was listening, now raised his head and said, "Here many say, Guru is God. There is no God but God," came her answer. Yeah, this is about some gurus. They want to be worshipped, they want adoration, they want to make a business. A guru does not accept worship. Worship is for God. Love, reverence, respect, all these things may be between the disciple and the guru. And the guru is there to serve the disciple on his path to God, not to get in the way and proclaim himself as God. None of that nonsense. And continuing, she said, "A spiritual master neither needs nor wants anything material from the disciple." This is a very important clue as to a real spiritual master. If somebody is making a business and exploiting people to gain money or to gain name or to gain fame, watch out. This is not a good person to take as a spiritual master. If he asks something of the disciple, it is always to benefit the disciple. Sometimes the master will take something away, just as a good mother seeing her child putting something dirty in his mouth will take it away. But be not afraid. Now then we come to the point of what you may lose when you enter spiritual life. And this is where some people don't want to seek spiritual life, because we don't want to give up the things we feel bring us pleasure. All that you lose are the things that bring you suffering. And the spiritual master doesn't rip them off of you. There is time and place when they will fall away naturally as you progress on this path. You will be more inclined towards the higher taste, and so the giving up of the lower taste will not be painful. But be not afraid, for you will never be given a burden that will break you, a load too heavy for you to carry, for out of love and knowledge the Master acts only for your good, And again the first man asked, And what of a disciple? What must he be, and what must he do? For it is said that it is very difficult to become your disciple, for you have turned many away who came to you. A disciple, she answered, must have a sincere desire for spiritual life, and that is easily known by whether or not he follows the instruction of the Master. So this is very important. Many people come wanting to join, but the test of the sincerity and the desire is very simple. When instruction is given, do they follow? And remember, instruction is only given for the benefit of the disciple. Disciple means discipline. A man who comes to the Master but who will not follow is like a man who says he wants to be clean but refuses to take a bath. Must I give up everything I own to follow you? This is the fearful question. What am I going to lose? How am I going to suffer for this? And this is why many people never come to spiritual life. The son of a rich man asks, But what do you own? She asks back. For surely everything belongs to God. We may only have the use of things temporarily while we are here. And then she would often interject with the story of Howard Hughes. At the time was a very wealthy, rich man. And when he died, people were speculating, God, how much money did he leave behind? He was so rich. He was like the richest person in the world. How much did he leave? And then just someone blurts out, all of it. Everything. Doesn't matter how much it was. It's all lost. Never was ours to begin with. What is important is not how little or how much we have, but that we use it in the service of God. Okay, stop there. Went a little over since there was technical difficulties for the half hour. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. I was wondering, how do you know you're ready for a spiritual master? And then I'm guessing they come to you, but then how does that work? What do you have to be doing for them to come to you?
That's a good question.
How do you prepare yourself to get a spiritual master as well?
Very good question. One of which I don't know if I could even properly answer, to be honest. It's individual to everybody. How is one ready? Oh, that's to do with deep in the heart of that person, that only God may know. But we get clues, as Mother Rytasha said. Like, what does she say exactly? Her exact words from the class. A disciple must have a sincere desire for spiritual life, and that is easily known by whether or not he follows the instructions of the Master. Disciple means discipline. So, for one who doesn't have a spiritual master, but they feel the desire for one, well, that's a very good beginning. Just even having a desire for a master or one to guide you. Nothing begins without desire. Not in heaven, not on earth. Everything begins with desire. So, having a sincere desire to surrender your life unto God and to give your life in selfless, loving service, no longer wanting to serve myself, or serve my family, or serve my country, or serve my society, or serve this planet, just wanting to serve God. And of course, by serving God, you are naturally serving everybody, because you come to a state of love of God. And in the state of love, well, only good and loving things come out of that. So having that sincere desire inside your heart that you just want to give up everything, all illusion, all causes of suffering, all of my own ideas, all of my own nonsense, all the things that I thought were so smart or so wise or whatever things I made up. Give up all of that. and just be a soul surrendered unto God. Whatever you want of me, God, let it be done. In the book Answers in the Religion of Love, there's a story of the wisest man of ancient Greece, and this one potential student who came to him seeking instruction to the mysteries of life and death. And as the story goes, the master took him to a pool and held his head underwater, just dunk. and then eventually the boy is just struggling, fighting, trying to get out of the water. You know, this master's like straight up trying to drown him. And he breaks free, and he's alive, okay? And the master says to him, when your desire for instruction was that strong, that primal, ultimate, there's nothing more important than right now. You're just dying for it. Literally, you're dying. You're trying to survive, trying to get out, trying to breathe, trying to live. The desire for God and for spiritual life has to be that strong, just as is your desire to live. Like, you cannot live without this. This is your life. That's how sincere a student must be in order for God to make a meeting with one who can fulfill that desire and help and guide us. We basically have to be like Abraham. The great prophet Abraham, his greatness was he always said yes to God. And when asked to sacrifice his most beloved thing in life, his only son. Was his only son? Yeah.
No. He has a different.
I don't know. His son, his firstborn son. He didn't say no. He didn't protest. He did as God commanded. He was ready to sacrifice anything and everything for the pleasure of God, even the things that were most dear to him in this world. Of course, angel comes, messenger stops him, and trades places with his son with the lamb and says, you've proven your faith and your sincerity to serve the Lord. That was a test of Abraham. How sincere was he? Would he really say yes to anything God would ask? And are we ready to accept anything the spiritual master instructs us, or asks of us, or tells us what to do or not to do? Are we ready to 100% completely surrender unto their instruction, without any deference, challenge, nothing but complete submissive hearing and surrender, in the mood of loving service, just wanting to serve, thinking yourself most meek, most low, and just wishing to be a servant of God by first learning how to be a servant of the servant of God. So, when we're as sincere as Abraham, if God asked you, God directly asked you, give up your family, give up your possessions, give up your prestige, your name, your wealth, even give up your own body, would you be really ready and willing to give all that up? Now, God is, of course, not going to ask you such a thing, of course. He might. It's happened before. There's precedence, but no, not in general. God is not saying give all this up. But what God is asking us to give up is our illusions in this world. The illusions that we are the body, the illusions that we are connected to other bodies based on bodily relations. This is all temporary illusions. Helping us realize that we don't own anything. All belongs to God. What are we actually giving up? We're not even these bodies. Who cares about this body if it dies? We've had millions and billions of them. So many different types and shapes and whatnot. They come and go. God is only asking us to give up our illusions of all these things, and our ignorance, which is the cause of our suffering, our forgetfulness of our true spiritual nature, our forgetfulness of a relationship with God, which is one of eternal loving service. So, someone might not understand that mood of complete surrender of the disciple to the master. And it is a mood of complete surrender. Whatever the spiritual master says is like pure gold, like nectar for the disciple. The instructions of the spiritual master are like the lifeblood of the disciple, and they cannot be separated from the disciple's heart. And every day, every moment, the sincere disciple is just seeking to please and serve his spiritual master. This mood of complete surrender and love may outwardly feel like someone's taken advantage of someone, but that's only because they don't understand that the spiritual master is not some worldly person, is not an ordinary person at all. They're not like someone who has their own ulterior motives and selfish desires and thinking on the bodily plane and just wanting to get something for themselves and enjoy. No. The spiritual master is one completely purified of all that. They are self-realized, spiritually realized, enlightened masters. They're not... They walk in this world, but they're not in this world anymore. They're with God in the spiritual. Their consciousness in their heart is pure. You're basically talking to an angel in an earthly form. You know, a fully realized, pure devotee of God. So, serving one is like this, whose only intention is to please God, serve the Lord, abide by His commandments and instructions in the Scriptures, and to help others also realize that inner meaning of the Scripture and come again to pure love of God. To serve such a one as this, there is no one greater whom you could render loving service unto. No one else in this world who loves you more than the spiritual master, who is a true well-wisher. Yes, they care about your body, they care about your well-being and your health, but who other than the spiritual master is looking after your eternal welfare? Is trying to save you, the spirit soul, from this endless suffering of birth and death. So, when will you know you're ready to serve a spiritual master? I guess it's suppose is how deep or how low are you ready to bring yourself down from our pride and our attachments to want to fully 100% give our lives completely to God. And I remember a class once with Mother Rytasha. We were in Benares, ancient city of Kashi, on the banks of the Ganges. And she said, "You've done this all before. You've done the career, you've done the house and the wife and the children. You've done this all so many times. So many times. When is that lifetime, that one lifetime, when you just say, I want to give everything to God? Full surrender. I just want to give my whole life, this whole lifetime to God. I gave so many lifetimes to this family, to that family, to this country, to this body, to that body. When is that lifetime going to happen in all your millions and billions of lifetimes in this universe? When is that one lifetime going to finally come around when you want to give everything to God? Boy, that shook me when I heard that. She's right. You see, the spiritual master is not an ordinary person. You see, that story of the man drowning, and that fight or flight, that emergency adrenaline kicking in, with utmost urgency, you put everything you have into just surviving in that moment. Well, the devotee of God is like that every single day. That's their hunger, their desire for God. That's how strong it is. They're just dying. They can't live without God's mercy, without understanding His message, without being of loving service, without becoming a good, humble devotee of the Lord. There's nothing the disciple, the sincere student, wants more in this life, and it's with all urgency that they give it their 100% effort every single day. This is the supreme goal in their life. There's no other objective. You see, initiation with the spiritual master is a public proclamation that you pretty much given your life over to God. In a sense, it's not different than, renouncing the world and joining a monastery, taking up vows and giving up worldly life. There's nothing different. It's the same thing, except it's not an outward or external thing. You don't have to go live in the ashram, or go live in the monastery and, completely run away from everything. No, you don't have to do that, actually. You could. But initiation with a spiritual master, a bona fide representative of God, when we are sincere for it, when we're ready for it, when our desire is that strong, like the desire to live, then that initiation is about a change of your heart, where now everything you do for God. Everything. God is the goal of your life. And you engage in spiritual practices given to you by the Master, and you follow regulative principles, give up bad habits, pick up good habits. Basically. Like any good teacher, right? Don't do that, do this, practice that. Any questions? That's the spiritual master. There to serve and help you understand and help you come up and become a devotee of God. And we need to get all of our own expectations and ideas of what a spiritual master is out of our head. Because remember, what we think is spiritual isn't. Because remember, it's already, the clue's already in what I said. What we think. What I think is spiritual. Think. It's the mind. Whatever is the mind coming up with isn't spiritual, just so you know. So any of your conception of what a real spiritual master is like, any of your conceptions what real spiritual life is like, how to really serve and please God, like I said before, just throw that out the window. Because just be completely surrendered and open-minded and throw all your own preconceived ideas and notions out of your head. Because one may appear as master and is not, and one may not appear as master but is. And they are beyond our criticizing or fault-finding, these pure, rare servants of God. Anywho, getting a little distracted. So, disciples, when are you ready? Time will tell. There'll be many tests, of course. But how do you want to make yourself ready? Now, that's another question. How do I make myself ready to be at that level of surrender? Be at that level of such strong desire that I want to do everything for the pleasure of God. Well, first, keep company with those who desire as you do. Association. If the secret to success in real estate is location, then the secret to success in spiritual life? Association. By associating with others who've made God the supreme goal in their life, who've made their life's endeavor to live the teachings of the scriptures and to become the living example of love of God, to keep company, to associate with devotees of the Lord, is a wonderful way to build and grow your desire. And it doesn't just have to be people. It can be with good books you read written by devotees, good music performed by devotees, eating good vegetarian food prepared by devotees. Even just thinking about the devotees, or thinking about the Lord, or studying His holy scriptures, and trying to practice and live like devotees. I can't speak for everybody. Everyone's path is unique to them. Everyone's unique and beautiful. And just like each of our experiences and each of our stories is so unique to each one of our own personalities and character, and so too is our unique loving relationship with God's, special and unique. So how everyone comes to God is very personal. I can only share with experience and realization of just how my experience was. So when I realized that I sincerely I've always wanted to live a spiritual life, but mostly when I was searching, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I was looking for God. I was looking for spiritual life, and I even left and went to India, and was reading books and trying to figure life out, kind of lost in life. I didn't have any compass. I just know I wanted to live a spiritual life, and I wanted knowledge, and I valued knowledge in the highest. And eventually, my desire kept growing and growing, till I realized that I needed a spiritual master. This is the way. And then when I asked Mother Rytasha if I could accept initiation, she turned me down and said, "You had more tests ahead of you." So what did I do? She didn't tell me what to do, but what did I do? Is I just started practicing everything that her disciples were doing. Basically, following in the footsteps of the devotees of God. So, whatever I saw these saintly people doing, I did that too. Remember, it says, one who acts as a saint before he's a saint becomes a saint. So I practiced all the do's and do nots. I tried to do my best that I could that her disciples did. And all the practices they did, I also did my best to do what they did. Until, if you looked at my activities and my behavior, I would appear non-different than her disciples. So when it was time, and I was surprised and taken aback when she did accept me as a disciple, when I was initiated, I was already waking up, 4 a.m. and chanting names of God for 2 hours a day, and I already had given up, illicit sex and meat eating and gambling and intoxication. I'd already been giving my earnest attempt to live out the scriptures and to hear the message of God and to associate with devotees. I was already doing all those things, even before I was initiated. So the initiation, almost like a formality, since in my heart, I had already accepted her as my spiritual master. And I was already following her instructions. And there was a couple times where I asked her questions, and this is before I was ever initiated, and she gave me her advice. And she even said before, you can do as you like. I'm just giving some, my advice. You don't have to follow this. You don't have to accept this. She wasn't giving it like a command or instruction. She just wanted to make that clear that this is just what I think's a good idea for you. Because I was not her disciple. But thank the Lord, I was intelligent enough that anytime she did give me some advice, you better believe I followed it. Because she was Mother Rytasha. She was the most amazing person I'd ever met, and still haven't met anyone like her. There was no person like like a pure devotee of the Lord, like an actual, real spiritual master. There's no one like them. Oh my goodness, they're not ordinary people. It's like, and you can, if your heart's any somewhat open enough, like you can feel that this is not a normal person. Like even the first time I met, I had tons of bad habits, but still I had somewhat of a good heart. I was trying to be a good person, and oh my goodness, even when I was full of doubts and full of my own preconceived judgments and whatnot, even still being in her presence, even I could feel that, wow, this is, her whole energy, her whole consciousness, everything about her was quite heavenly, was quite real. I think that's she was so real. There was never a person I ever met in all my journeys, and all around India I traveled. I mean, there's so many gurus, so many masters I met actually, but I never met someone as real as Mother Rytasha. It was like talking to someone in the spiritual world, talking to like an actual angel. It wasn't like talking to a normal person. So thank goodness I had the good sense to listen to her advice, and accepted her instructions, even though they weren't given as such. So how can you make yourself ready to accept this type of life, this type of surrender and service? Well, associate with devotees, engage in devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, and try to follow what great saints and devotees and masters who have come before as they did. Follow in their footsteps. Not imitate. Don't try to dress like them, look like them, trying No. Follow in their footsteps of their instructions, how they served, how they practically applied God's teachings. So anyways, I talked too much. I hope that answered your question. Does anybody have any others?
Everyone must meet with a spiritual master and have a spiritual master to purify the consciousness and become a pure devotee, or just by, if never met any spiritual master or having a spiritual master, by just reading the scriptures and following the principles, they can purify their consciousness.
Well, of course. In fact, devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, these are the things that actually purify our consciousness and our heart. In fact, these are the things we should be doing. Because when our consciousness is pure enough, it's actually that sincere engagement in these purifying things of the following the scriptures, prayer, worship, all these things we do. These are the things that actually will ultimately attract the messenger of God to guide you. So if you haven't met a pure devotee, if you haven't met a spiritual master yet, of course, who has really? It's very rare, That's all right. You don't worry about that. You just keep sincerely doing your best to live a spiritual life. Kind of like how I did. Try to do good. Try to be good. Try to live in love. Chant God's names. Hear, obey His instructions in the scriptures. Try to remember, pray to God as much as possible. These are the purifying things that ultimately attract the spiritual master to us. By the grace of God, one gets a spiritual master. And by the mercy of the spiritual master, one gets God. So all this prayer, all this religiosity, all this purification of our heart, yes, it's all good. Everyone's doing it, everyone's at different levels. And when your heart is ready to free yourself from all worldly attachments, when your desire for God is as strong as your desire to live, then will the Master appear to take you to the final stretch and guide you straight home to God. Now that you've done the foundation work yourself, now it's time to take you home.
Is it necessary? Is it I don't know how to say that. It's like every soul will meet a spiritual master, or it's not necessary?
It depends on your desire. But is it necessary to go home to God by
Spiritual
by accepting a spiritual master? Well, there are examples in history where God directly purified the heart by his causeless mercy, a devotee of God, or a person on earth. Someone like a Saint Francis of Assisi, who had no spiritual master, but boy was he a pure saint. God directly blessed him with knowledge and love in his heart, purified his heart. But that's so rare. Again, go back to the analogy of the doctor. You know, when you're really sick, you want the doctor who's actually qualified. You don't want to go to someone who just had a vision. I had a vision of Jesus, and now I know what's what. Well, better than following the vision of Paul, you follow the instructions of the disciple Peter. Paul is great. He'll inspire you. But when it comes to what you're doing, follow Peter. You know, and you want someone qualified. And same thing, if you want to get a university degree, sure, you can live an amazing life and hope that one day I'll get an honorary degree. I think even Arnold Schwarzenegger got like an honorary degree from some university in, I don't know, Iowa or God knows. You know, rather than trying to get the honorary degree, the safe bet to getting an education is going to the university and actually taking the classes. So, if you really want to make it home to the spiritual world, you really want to end the cycle of birth and death, you really want to cut all your worldly attachments and all of your illusions and all the so-called material pleasures, which are actually causes of suffering, and give it all up and become again a beloved lover, servant of God, then yes, it would be wise to accept a spiritual master. Otherwise, we'll just be listening to the voice in our head saying, God told me to do this, God told me to do that. Just like, you know, Jack the Ripper. So, spiritual master will make sure we don't commit such foolish mistakes or follow the illusions in our mind. And remember, the spiritual master only speaks the message of God. There's nothing Mother Rytasha has taught that's not to be found in the scriptures. And that is the test of every spiritual master. It's not some new philosophy that man made. They only practice and preach what God has given. There's no change. So, yes, why would you not want to have a spiritual master who just lives the message of God? Because we need to see the message lived out. We need the living example. Otherwise, it's all just theory. You need to see someone. We need to see the message of God lived out. Otherwise, how do we know to what standard, to what, to what we know is possible? If we don't know what's possible, if we don't actually see the possible, our mind will never think we can do it. But when you see others who have done it, the others who are doing it, now we see, oh, this is possible, I can do it too, if I just listen and follow and serve as they did. And I just follow in their footsteps. Okay, we're going a little over, so I should stop there. All right, everybody. All glories to Mother Rytasha, all glories to religion of love, all glories to assembled devotees. Jai. Stop recording.